The House passed a pretty good bill yesterday. It is the For the People Act, a sweeping bill that seeks to change campaign finance, voting, and ethics laws. The bill would expand access to the ballot box by creating automatic voter registration across the country, restoring the voting rights of the formerly incarcerated, expanding early voting, and modernizing America's voting systems. And because it does all of those things, every one of which is the essence of common sense, it narrowly passed the House 220 to 210, with one Democrat joining all Republican House members in voting against it. Because, like, honestly, the one Democrat crossing over at least made this a little bit interesting. Is there any bill that isn't 100% along party lines at this point? Even something like, hey, let's let people vote. Anyway, Adrian, it passed. It's got some good stuff. We're gonna talk about more provisions of it, but this is the sort of thing I would want Democrats to be trying to pass, and at least in the House, they did it.
Yes, and I'm sure they're gonna pat themselves on the backs for it and kind of say, whew, I'm done for the season. That was good. Was it good for you? And as a result of that, I'm concerned that nothing else progressive is going to get done that will advance us in any way, because they'll feel like, hey, they threw us a little nugget here. But I do appreciate some of what's in the People Act. So I will leave it to you to dive in.
Yeah, and I will in one sec, but let's, you're totally right that it's a nugget being thrown to us. But I would argue the nugget hasn't even been thrown to us yet. Like, if it passed, maybe we could consider, like in the Senate as well, and it was signed into law and it became actual law, then we can evaluate its nuggetness. But right now, it's a phantom nugget. It's just the promise of a future nugget at some point. And right now, considering what we know about the Senate, this is a great bill for them to poop on that will never actually pass. It's a wonderful bill that's not gonna go anywhere because Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and probably some others who are even more cowardly and won't admit that they don't support overriding the filibuster prefer their myth of the filibuster more than the For the People Act. They think this fake idea that they have the filibuster that they say is gonna lead to bipartisanship, well, not a single Republican joined it in the House. How many do you think are gonna join the Senate? That is worth more than automatic voter registration, restoring the voting rights, expanding early voting, modernizing America's voting systems, all of that. All of that is perfectly fine and good from their point of view, but it's not as good as when they were kids, they watched Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and they haven't been able to get past it since then. And so that's sort of depressing.
It is very depressing, absolutely.
Okay, so let's get into what's actually in this. So the bill's voting provisions would guarantee no excuse mail voting and at least 15 days of early voting for federal elections, require states to use their existing government records to automatically register citizens to vote, restore voting rights to felons who have completed their prison sentences, and mandate the use of paper ballots so that we could actually, go back and look at things. All of this, especially that, should be incredibly popular for Republicans since every single one of them believes that the last election was entirely fraudulent, even if it was run entirely by Republicans. So look, we'll have a paper trail. You'll be able to find out if it was fraudulent, but you don't want to actually find out. You want to not actually know, but to be able to say that it is. Anyway, other provisions would create new disclosure requirements for dark money donations to political groups, require states to appoint independent commissions to draw congressional districts, and create new federal standards for election equipment vendors. And it's like the amazing thing, Adrian, is there's a lot in this. There's more than we've gotten to. Any one of those things wouldn't be acceptable to the Republicans. And I gotta give them credit at least that they're trying to do it all at once. That is something. If you're gonna throw a nugget, make it a tasty one, I guess.
Yes, it seems to be very sweeping. The one that kind of caught my eye, I don't know if it's exactly on point, but it seems very, very similar in terms of disclosures for dark money, because I know California had passed that law, and that is now before the Supreme Court. And we have the Koch family trying to really leverage that. And the thing is, we do need more transparency, but also, as you had initially indicated, having these provisions in place where people ensure early voting. You have these parameters that are set up so we reduce all the things that the Republicans were complaining about in the last election. They would seem great if the true Republican agenda was to ensure that it wasn't a wholly lawful election as opposed to suppress voters. And the fact that people would have actually more guaranteed rights here is not something that the Republicans would be down for.
Exactly, and they're not. Just at CPAC, Trump in his speech said, "This monster must be stopped. It can't be allowed to pass." And why? Because there's some actual problem with it. There's legitimate concerns about how it would lead to voting fraud. No, it would lead to voting and then cut it off. That's it. It would lead to more people voting, and they don't want that. And for like, and I can sort of get it for some stuff. Like now, early voting and mail-in voting probably does hurt the Republicans. It didn't have to. The only reason it does is because they spent a full year demonizing it. They could have just told their people to vote by mail, and they would have. Republicans vote. Republicans do actually vote. They could have benefited from this, but they prefer the lie to winning elections. It's really sick. There's some other stuff too. Tech platforms have to disclose political advertising information. There'd be a code of ethics for the Supreme Court, restructuring the FEC to add an odd number of members to break partisan deadlocks. Because why would you have an equal number in a country where people just vote their party anyway? Anyway, and I wanted to also bring up, Adrian, have you been watching at all the recent Supreme Court conversations around, for instance, the out of precinct voting in Arizona? I don't know if that's something you've been tracking.
Just a little bit.
Okay, well, we don't know exactly how that's gonna go, but the Supreme Court, which has a conservative supermajority, seems like they're gonna allow those like voting suppression laws to stay in effect, despite the clear evidence that it affects non-white voters at far higher rates.
Yep.
And so I'm a little bit worried about, even if this was to pass, if the Supreme Court would strike down major portions of it and things like that. I don't know if you think that that's a possibility.
I definitely think it is a possibility to carve it out. I could see that coming in the future years without a doubt, because as you mentioned, we do have that supermajority on SCOTUS, and they tend to lean heavily Republican. And it's like you already have the guaranteed votes there to at least get the issue before the court. And it's really unfortunate, but it hits me all the time, every day, that our nation was founded on the principle and ideology that white male landowners should be the one to vote, and we're still trying to reinforce that, even when we're using these veiled premises of, oh no, we're just trying to make sure voting is safe. No, we know what the real deal is and what's actually going on. And it really shows me that this is not really much of a democracy at all. But it looks cute dressed up as a democracy. But when it starts to actually function like one, I like that.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.